He raised a goblet over Maya's head and poured. Red wine spilled through her hair, soaking into the silk of her dress, dripping onto the marble floor as the crystal chandeliers of the Metropolitan Club fractured the moment into cruel, prismatic light. Gasps rippled through the ballroom. Laughter died mid-breath. Maya Richardson did not move. Chicago's elite, gathered for the annual Technology Innovation Gala, stared as the silence thickened. Maya stood near the bar, a glass of sparkling water still steady in her hand. Her expression calm, controlled, and unreadable. Years of existing in rooms where power disguised itself as privilege had taught her restraint, taught her that reaction was optional. The wine continued to drip, each drop marking a line that could not be crossed back. At 34, Maya was the founder and CEO of Quantum Solutions, a cybersecurity firm that had revolutionized data protection for Fortune 500 companies. In just 8 years, she built the company from a startup in her studio apartment to a powerhouse valued at $2.3 billion. Tonight, she was here to finalize the most significant deal of her career, a $650 million acquisition of Morrison Tech, a legacy software company that would catapult Quantum Solutions into new markets and cement her position as one of the most influential tech leaders in the country. The Morrison family, Richard Morrison Sr., his wife Patricia, and their son Richard Jr., whom everyone called Trip, were somewhere in this crowd. Maya had been negotiating with Richard Sr. for 6 months, and tonight was supposed to be a celebration. The contracts were drafted. The lawyers had reviewed everything, and all that remained was a signing ceremony scheduled for Monday morning. Maya had dressed carefully for the evening in a tailored midnight blue gown that was elegant without being ostentatious. Her natural hair was styled in an elegant updo, and she wore minimal jewelry, just diamond studs and her mother's vintage watch. She learned early in her career that as a black woman in tech, she had to be twice as prepared, twice as professional, and twice as careful about how she presented herself. Every detail mattered. Ms. Richardson? A young server approached with a tray of hors d'oeuvres. "Would you care for something?" "No, thank you," Maya said with a warm smile. She'd already eaten, knowing from experience that these events often had long gaps between courses, and she needed to stay sharp for the conversations ahead. "Maya," a voice called out, and she turned to see Jennifer Park, the CFO of a major pharmaceutical company and one of the few other women of color in the room. Jennifer navigated through the crowd with the ease of someone who'd spent decades in these spaces. "I've been looking for you everywhere. Have you met the Morrisons yet?" "Not yet." "I was giving them time to make their rounds. You know how these things are. Everyone wants FaceTime with the family selling their legacy company." Jennifer lowered her voice. "Have you met the son, Trip?" Something in Jennifer's tone made Maya's instinct sharpen. "No." "Why?" "Just be prepared. He's not like his father. Richard Sr. is old school, built that company from nothing. Understand the value of hard work. Trip is..." She paused, choosing her words carefully, privileged in a way that makes him think the world exists to serve him. "So, a trust fund kid who's never had to work for anything?" Maya said dryly. "I've dealt with those before. This one's worse. I've seen him at these events. He's casually cruel in a way that suggests he's never faced consequences for anything." Jennifer squeezed Maya's arm. "Just watch yourself. I know this deal is important." Before Maya could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew their attention. The Morrison family had arrived. Richard Morrison Sr. was in his early 70s, tall and distinguished with silver hair and the bearing of someone who commanded boardrooms for decades. Patricia Morrison, his wife, was elegantly dressed in a champagne-colored gown, her blonde hair perfectly coiffed. She smiled graciously at the people greeting them, her posture suggesting years of practice at these events. And then there was Trip. Richard Morrison Jr. was 26, though he carried himself with the arrogance of someone much older, or perhaps someone who'd never had to grow up. He was handsome in a conventional way. Sandy blonde hair styled with too much product, an expensive suit that fit perfectly, a Patek Philippe watch that probably cost more than most people's cars. But it was his expression that caught Maya's attention, a smirk that suggested he found everything and everyone around him vaguely amusing, and beneath his notice, He held a glass of red wine carelessly in one hand, while scrolling through his phone with the other, ignoring the people trying to greet his family. When a server approached with a tray, Tripp waved him away without looking up from his screen. "That's him," Jennifer murmured. "See what I mean?" Maya did see. She'd encountered men like Tripp before. Men who'd been handed everything, who'd grown up in spaces where their comfort and convenience were everyone else's priority, who'd never been told no in any meaningful way. They were exhausting to deal with, but she'd managed worse. "I'll be fine," Maya assured Jennifer. "This deal is too important to let an entitled rich kid derail it." Famous last words, Jennifer said, but she was smiling. "Good luck. I'll be around if you need backup." As Jennifer moved away, Maya straightened her shoulders and began making her way toward the Morrison family. Several other executives had the same idea, and soon there was a small crowd forming around Richard Sr., everyone vying for a moment of his attention. Maya hung back, waiting for the right moment. She didn't need to push her way to the front. That wasn't her style. Instead, she caught Richard Sr.'s eye across the crowd and gave him a small nod of acknowledgement. His face brightened immediately, and he excused himself from the conversation he was in. "Maya." Richard Sr. extended his hand warmly, and she shook it firmly. "I was hoping you'd be here tonight. Patricia, come meet Maya Richardson." Patricia turned with a practiced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Up close, Maya could see the calculation in the older woman's gaze as she assessed Maya from head to toe, the dress, the hair, the jewelry, the posture. Maya had been evaluated like this countless times before, usually by women who'd married into wealth rather than earning it themselves. "Ms. Richardson," Patricia said, her tone polite but cool. "Richard has told me so much about your company. How interesting that someone so young has achieved so much." The compliment had barbs hidden in it. Someone so young. The implication being, too young, perhaps unproven, possibly in over her head. Maya smiled graciously. "I've been fortunate to have incredible mentors and an exceptional team. And please call me Maya." "Of course," Patricia said, though her tone suggested she'd do no such thing. "And you must call me Patricia. Tell me, dear, how did you get started in technology? It's such an unusual field for a woman." For a black woman, Maya heard in the unspoken subtext. She'd become expert at hearing what people didn't say. "I studied computer science and cryptography at MIT," Maya said evenly. "After graduation, I worked in cybersecurity for several major firms before starting Quantum Solutions. I saw a gap in the market for more sophisticated, AI-driven security protocols, and I had the technical background to develop them." "MIT," Patricia repeated, and something flickered in her expression. Surprise, perhaps, that Maya had credentials from such prestigious institution. "How impressive. And your family must be so proud." "They are," Maya said simply, not elaborating. Her parents, her father a postal worker, her mother a teacher, had sacrificed enormously to support her education. But that wasn't information she felt compelled to share with Patricia Morrison. "Where's Tripp?" Richard Sr. asked, looking around. He should meet Maya. After all, if this acquisition goes through, they'll be working together. Maya's stomach tightened slightly. She'd known, of course, that Tripp would have a role in the merged company. He was currently the VP of Business Development at Morrison Tech, a title his father had given him fresh out of college. But she hoped to minimize his involvement in the actual operations. "He's around here somewhere," Patricia said vaguely, waving her hand. "You know how he is at these things. Probably networking." From what Maya had observed, Tripp's version of networking involved ignoring everyone while checking his social media, but she kept that thought to herself. "Well, when you see him, please introduce us," Maya said to Richard Sr. "I'm looking forward to discussing the transition plan." They chatted for a few more minutes about the acquisition, Richard Sr. expressing his excitement about what Quantum Solutions would do with Morrison Tech's legacy systems, Maya outlining her vision for integrating the two companies. Patricia listened with that same cool smile, occasionally interjecting questions that seemed designed to test whether Maya really knew what she was talking about. Maya answered each question thoroughly and confidently. She'd spent 6 months preparing for this acquisition, had personally reviewed every line of Morrison text code, had analyzed every financial statement, had interviewed key employees. She knew this company better than Patricia Morrison ever would. Finally, Richard Sr. was pulled away by another executive wanting his attention, and Patricia excused herself to speak with friends. Maya took a breath, relieved to have gotten through that initial meeting without incident. That looked painful, a voice said beside her, and Maya turned to find Marcus Chun, her COO and closest friend, holding 2 glasses of champagne. He offered her one, which she accepted gratefully. How bad was it? Patricia Morrison just called me dear 3 times and questioned whether I really had credentials to run a tech company, Maya said dryly. So, about average for these things. Marcus winced. He was one of the few people in her life who truly understood what she dealt with. As an Asian American man in tech, he'd face his own share of discrimination, though he was the first to acknowledge that what Maya experienced as a black woman was on another level entirely. You know, Richard Sr. respects you, Marcus said. The deal will be fine. I know, but I haven't met the son yet. Maya glanced around the room. Jennifer warned me about him. Trip Morrison? Marcus's expression darkened. Yeah, I've heard stories. Apparently, he's been coasting on his father's name his entire life. Never had a real job, never built anything himself. Just shows up, collects a paycheck, and spends it on cars and watches, and whatever else rich kids waste money on these days. And after the acquisition, he'll technically be my employee, Maya said grimly. Technically, but you're the CEO. You can structure his role to minimize damage. Give him some ceremonial position where he can't actually break anything important. That's the plan. Keep him away from anything critical. Let him have a fancy title in an office, and focus on integrating the actual talent from Morrison Tech into our operations. They were interrupted by the sound of breaking glass across the room. Maya turned to see Trip Morrison standing near one of the high-top tables. A server at his feet tried to clean up what appeared to be a dropped tray of champagne glasses. Trip was laughing, his phone held up as if he were recording the incident. Dude, you should see your face. Trip said loudly, his words slightly slurred. That was hilarious. Do it again. The server, a young man who couldn't have been more than 20, was red-faced with embarrassment and trying to apologize. Other guests were staring, some with amusement, others with disapproval. Richard Sr. appeared quickly, putting a hand on his son's shoulder. Trip, that's enough. Let the staff do their job. Oh, come on, Dad. It was just a joke. Lighten up. Trip took a long drink from his wine glass, which someone had apparently refilled. Everyone's so sensitive these days. Patricia materialized on Trip's other side, her smile strained. Darling, why don't we go say hello to the Hendersons? They've been asking about you. The Hendersons are boring, Trip said flatly. Their daughter's been trying to get my attention all night. What's her name? Brittany? Bethany? Whatever. She's like a 6, maybe a 7 on a good day. Maya watched the scene with growing distaste. This wasn't just privileged, it was cruel. The casual dismissal of the server, the objectification of women, the complete disregard for how his behavior reflected on his family or their company. That's who you're acquiring? Marcus murmured beside her. Are you sure about this? Maya was saved from answering by the announcement that dinner was about to be served. The crowd began moving toward the formal dining room, where place cards designated seating arrangements. Maya found her seat near the head table, a position of honor given her status as one of the evening's guests of honor. She wasn't surprised to see that she'd been placed between Richard Sr. and another tech CEO she knew well. Patricia was on Richard Sr.'s other side, and Trip, Maya's heart sank as she saw the place card directly across from her. Richard Morrison, Jr. This was going to be a long dinner. Chapter 2, The Incident. The first course was served, a delicate appetizer of seared scallops with microgreens, and Maya found herself making small talk with the CEO to her left, a man named David Fitzgerald, who ran a major logistics company. They discussed supply chain innovations and the impact of AI on warehouse management, a conversation Maya could have had in her sleep, but that served to pass the time pleasantly enough. Richard Sr. on her right was deep in conversation with Patricia about something to do with their youngest daughter's upcoming wedding. Maya listened politely when he included her, asking her opinion on venues — she had none — and whether she thought orchids or peonies made better centerpieces. She honestly couldn't have cared less. Across from her, Tripp had barely acknowledged anyone. He'd sprawled in his chair, his phone on the table beside his plate, his wine glass being refilled regularly by attentive servers. He'd taken a few bites of scallops, made a face, and pushed the plate away. Not a fan of seafood? Maya asked politely, attempting to break the ice. Tripp looked up as if noticing her for the first time. His eyes swept over her in a way that made Maya's skin crawl. Not with attraction, but with assessment, as if he were calculating her worth and finding it wanting. "Who are you?" he asked flatly. Maya felt several people at the table tense. Richard Sr. turned from his conversation with Patricia, his expression concerned. "Tripp, this is Maya Richardson. Ms. Richardson is the CEO of Quantum Solutions, the company we're—" "Oh, right," Tripp interrupted, taking another drink of wine. "The acquisition, Dad's new project." He looked at Maya again, his expression somewhere between bored and disdainful. "You're younger than I expected." "I started my company when I was 26. Maya said evenly. "The same age you are now, actually." "Cute," Tripp said, and it wasn't a compliment. "Let me guess. You're one of those girl boss types who thinks they're special because they learned to code?" The table had gone quiet now. David Fitzgerald had stopped eating mid-bite. Richard Sr. looked like he wanted to disappear. Patricia's expression was carefully neutral, but Maya caught the flicker of something in her eyes. Not disapproval of her son's rudeness, but rather a kind of vindicated satisfaction, as if Tripp were simply saying out loud what she'd been thinking privately. "I don't think I'm special," Maya said calmly, though she could feel her pulse starting to quicken. "I think I'm competent." "There's a difference." "Competent," Tripp repeated, dragging out the word mockingly. "Right. Well, I'm sure you've done very well for yourself. Got some nice investors. Probably some diversity initiatives working in your favor. Rode the whole women in tech wave." "Tripp," Richard Sr. said sharply, his voice harder now. "That's enough." "What?" "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. It's not exactly a secret that companies like hers get preferential treatment. All the VCs falling over themselves to fund diverse founders or whatever. Meanwhile, people who actually deserve funding. People like you?" Maya interrupted, her voice still calm but with an edge of steel now. "People who inherited their positions rather than earning them?" Tripp's face flushed red. "Excuse me. You heard me. You're sitting here questioning my competence, suggesting I only succeeded because of diversity initiatives, when you've never had to compete for anything in your life. You were born on third base and think you hit a triple." "How dare you?" "How dare I what? Point out facts? You're a VP at your father's company. A position you got because of your last name, not your qualifications. You've never built anything, never created anything, never taken a real risk. So perhaps before you question my legitimacy, you should examine your own." The silence at the table was deafening. Other conversations at nearby tables had stopped, guests craning their necks to see what was happening. Richard Sr. had gone pale. Patricia's carefully neutral expression had cracked, revealing something uglier underneath. Tripp stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. His face was purple with rage, and he was breathing hard. "You don't know anything about me," he said, his voice shaking. "You don't know what I've dealt with, what pressure I'm under, what it's like to live up to my father's legacy." "You're right," Maya said, remaining seated, her voice calm. "I don't know what that's like, because I didn't have a legacy handed to me. I had to build my own." For a moment, Maya thought Tripp might actually leave. He stood there, swaying slightly, from anger or from the wine. She wasn't sure, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Then, in a movement so quick that no one had time to react, Tripp picked up his wine glass, full of deep red Cabernet, and hurled its contents directly at Maya. The wine hit her squarely in the face and chest, soaking her hair, her dress, running down her skin in rivulets. The shock of it, the cold liquid, the sheer audacity of the act, left her frozen for a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity. And in that moment of shocked silence, Patricia Morrison laughed. It wasn't a loud laugh, not quite. More of a choked giggle that she tried to hide behind her hand. But Maya heard it. Everyone at the table heard it. Patricia's eyes were alight with something that looked almost like glee, as if watching Maya humiliated had given her immense satisfaction. Richard Sr. wasn't laughing. He'd stood up, his face a mask of horror. Trip, what the hell? But Trip was laughing too, a harsh, ugly sound that rang through the now silent ballroom. Oops, he said, not sounding sorry at all. My hand slipped. Maybe you should be more careful about who you insult. Maya sat very still, wine dripping from her hair onto the white tablecloth. She could feel hundreds of eyes on her, could hear the whispers starting, could sense phones being pulled out to document the moment. This would be on social media within minutes. By morning, it would be everywhere. She had a choice in this moment. She could cry, could flee to the bathroom, could let them see her humiliated, or she could take control of the situation. Slowly, deliberately, Maya reached for her napkin and wiped the wine from her face. Then she stood, her ruined dress clinging to her, and looked directly at Trip Morrison. "Thank you," she said, her voice carrying across the silent room, "for showing me exactly who you are." She turned to Richard Sr., who looked like he might be having a heart attack. "Mr. Morrison, I apologize for any embarrassment this may cause you, but I'm afraid I can no longer proceed with the acquisition of Morrison Tech. As of this moment, the deal is canceled." "What?" Richard Sr.'s voice was barely above a whisper. "Maya, please, let's discuss this privately." "There's nothing to discuss. I will not merge my company with one whose leadership," she glanced at Patricia, who'd stopped laughing, "tolerates this kind of behavior. My lawyers will be in touch regarding the cancellation clauses in our agreement." She looked at Trip one more time. He'd stopped laughing, and something like concern had crept into his expression, as if he was just beginning to realize that actions might have consequences. "Enjoy the rest of your evening," Maya said to the table at large. Then she turned and walked out of the ballroom, her head held high, her ruined dress leaving a trail of red wine drops behind her. Marcus caught up with her in the lobby. "Maya, wait." "Not now," she said, her voice finally shaking. "I need to get out of here. I need to." Her phone was ringing, and ringing, and ringing. She pulled it out with trembling hands and saw dozens of notifications flooding in. Messages, calls, news alerts. Someone had already posted video of the incident. The headline on one tech news site made her stomach drop. "Black tech CEO assaulted at gala. Deal worth hundreds of millions canceled." "Oh, God," Maya whispered. "Come on," Marcus said, putting an arm around her shoulders. "Let's get you out of here. My car's out front." As they pushed through the doors, Maya could hear the roar of conversation resuming in the ballroom behind her. She imagined Trip and Patricia scrambling to control the narrative, Richard Sr. trying desperately to salvage the situation. But it was too late. In the span of 30 seconds, Trip Morrison had cost his family $650 million. And Maya Richardson was about to make sure the world knew exactly why. Chapter 3, The Fallout. Maya didn't go home that night. Instead, Marcus drove her to the Quantum Solutions headquarters, a sleek glass building in the West Loop that she purchased 2 years ago, one of the proudest moments of her life. At 2 a.m, the building was empty except for security, but Maya's key card gave her access to everything. She changed in the executive bathroom, washing the wine from her skin and hair as best she could, then putting on workout clothes she kept in her office for the gym on the 5th floor. The ruined gown went into a plastic bag, evidence, though she wasn't sure yet what she'd need it for. By the time she settled into her office, her phone had exploded with notifications, calls from board members, messages from investors, emails from journalists, and, perhaps most telling, 3 missed calls from Richard Morrison Sr. and 5 from Morrison Tech's corporate attorneys. Marcus had called in Simone Park, Quantum's general counsel, and Jennifer Wu, their head of PR. Both women had dropped everything to come in, and now they sat in Maya's office, reviewing the video that had gone viral. "It's been viewed 2 million times in 2 hours," Jennifer said grimly, scrolling through her tablet. The hashtag wine incident is trending nationally. And Maya, it's not pretty. Let me see, Maya said, though Parker didn't want to. Jennifer turned the tablet toward her, and Maya watched a video that someone had recorded from a nearby table. The quality was surprisingly good. Good enough to see Tripp sneer, to hear Maya's words about him never building anything, to catch the moment he grabbed the wine glass and threw it. What the video couldn't fully capture was the sound of Patricia's laugh, though eagle-eared viewers in the comments section were debating whether they could hear it. What it did capture, crystal clear, was Tripp's mocking oops and Maya's dignified response. The comments section was a war zone. Some people were defending Maya, calling Tripp a spoiled brat and applauding her for canceling the deal. But others, far too many others, were criticizing her for overreacting, for being too sensitive, for playing the race card. They're saying I provoked him, Maya said quietly, reading through some of the comments. That I was rude first, so I deserve what I got. Some people will say anything to justify the unjustifiable. Simone said, her voice tight with anger. Simone was a black woman in her 50s, a veteran lawyer who'd seen every kind of discrimination the legal profession had to offer. But legally, you're in an excellent position. That's assault, plain and simple, and with the video evidence. I'm not pressing charges, Maya interrupted. All three women stared at her. Maya, he assaulted you, Marcus said. On camera, in front of hundreds of witnesses. You have to. I don't have to do anything, Maya said firmly. And pressing charges would just drag this out, keep me in the news cycle for all the wrong reasons. I need to focus on the business implications, not getting revenge on some rich kid who'll probably just get a slap on the wrist anyway. Then let's talk business implications, Simone said, opening her laptop. The Morrison Tech acquisition was valued at $650 million, according to the purchase agreement. Either party can cancel within the due diligence period for cause. The question is whether tonight's incident constitutes cause. A key executive assaulted me, Maya said. How is that not cause? It is, in my opinion. But Morrison Tech's lawyers will argue that Tripp's behavior was personal, not professional, and that it shouldn't impact a business transaction. They'll say you're being emotional and vindictive. Let them say it, Maya said coldly. I'm not merging my company with people who think that behavior is acceptable. Richard Sr. might be a decent man, but he raised that son. And Patricia was laughing. Laughing. That tells me everything I need to know about the culture of that family, and by extension, their company. The market's going to react, Jennifer warned. Morrison Tech stock is going to plummet when this gets out. And there might be some backlash against Quantum, too. From who? Racists who think I should have just sat there with wine dripping off my face and accepted it. Maya's voice was sharp. If those are the kind of investors we have, I'd rather know now. That's not what I meant. I know what you meant, and you're right, there will be consequences. But the consequences of going through with this deal would be worse. Imagine trying to integrate Morrison Tech staff with ours when Tripp Morrison is technically my employee. Imagine the message it would send to every black person, every woman, every person of color at Quantum if I shrugged this off and said, well, it's just business. The room was quiet for a moment. Finally, Marcus spoke. So, what do you want to do? Maya stood and walked to the window, looking out at the Chicago skyline. Dawn was beginning to break, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Out there, millions of people were waking up, checking their phones, seeing the video, forming opinions, taking sides. We put out a statement, Maya said. Clear, factual, unambiguous. We explain why the deal is canceled. We don't attack the Morrisons. We don't have to. The video speaks for itself. But we make it clear that Quantum Solutions has standards, and those standards include basic human decency and respect. They're going to say you're being unprofessional, Jennifer said, that you're letting personal feelings interfere with business. Then they don't understand business. Culture matters. Leadership matters. The character of the people you partner with matters. This deal would have been a disaster, and Tripp Morrison just saved me from finding that out the hard way. Maya turned back to face them. I'm not sorry I canceled it. I'm only sorry it took him throwing wine in my face to see what was right in front of me. Simone was typing rapidly on her laptop. I'll draft the statement. Jennifer, start preparing for the media onslaught. Marcus, call an emergency board meeting for Monday morning. We need to get ahead of this. What about Morrison Tech? Marcus asked. Richard Sr. is going to keep calling. Let him call. I have nothing more to say to him right now. Maybe eventually, when emotions have cooled, we can have a conversation about what happened. But tonight, Maya shook her head. Tonight, his son assaulted me. His wife laughed about it. And he just stood there. He doesn't get to ask me for anything right now. Over the next few hours, Maya's team worked with military precision. Simone drafted a statement that was reviewed and revised a dozen times. Jennifer prepared talking points for when the media came calling. Marcus reached out to board members and key investors to brief them before the story exploded further. By the time the sun was fully up, they were ready. Chapter 4, the statement. At 8 a.m. Chicago time, Quantum Solutions posted the following statement to their website and social media. Last night at the Technology Innovation Gala, I was assaulted by Richard Morrison Jr., Vice President of Morrison Tech. The incident was unprovoked, witnessed by hundreds of people and captured on video. In light of this incident and the reaction of Morrison Tech leadership present at the event, I have made the decision to cancel Quantum Solutions' planned $650 million acquisition of Morrison Tech. This decision was not made lightly. We have spent 6 months in negotiations, and our teams have worked hard on the integration plans. However, business decisions cannot be separated from values and culture. The behavior I witnessed last night, both the assault itself and the response to it, revealed a culture that is fundamentally incompatible with Quantum Solutions' values of respect, professionalism, and dignity. Some will say this decision is emotional or vindictive. I disagree. It is neither emotional nor vindictive to have standards. It is neither emotional nor vindictive to refuse to reward behavior that demeans and dehumanizes. It is neither emotional nor vindictive to walk away from people who have shown you exactly who they are. I built Quantum Solutions on the principles of excellence, innovation, and treating people with respect. I will not compromise those principles for any amount of money. To the employees of Morrison Tech, this is not about you. Many of you are talented professionals who deserve better leadership than you've been given. Quantum Solutions will be opening several senior positions in the coming months, and I encourage any Morrison Tech employees who share our values to apply. To our investors, board members, and stakeholders, I understand this decision has financial implications, but I believe that companies built on strong values and culture ultimately outperform those that prioritize short-term gains over long-term integrity. I remain confident in Quantum Solutions' growth strategy and our ability to find acquisition targets that align with our mission. And to everyone watching, you deserve to see the truth of what happened last night. No one should have to endure what I endured, and no one should be expected to smile and continue with business as usual after being treated that way. Thank you for your support. Maya Richardson, founder and CEO, Quantum Solutions. The statement went nuclear. Within an hour, it had been shared over 100,000 times. News outlets picked it up, running stories with headlines like, Tech CEO walks away from $650 million deal after assault, and Maya Richardson proves that values matter more than money. The reaction was mixed, as Maya had known it would be. Supporters praised her courage and conviction. Detractors called her oversensitive and accused her of ruining a young man's life over a harmless prank. But the business world, the part that mattered, understood exactly what she'd done, and they respected it. By noon, Maya had received messages of support from dozens of other CEOs, including several who'd had their own negative experiences with the Morrison family. One venture capitalist sent a particularly illuminating email. Maya, been wanting to invest in Quantum for years, but you've never needed VC money. After seeing your statement today, I'm more convinced than ever that you're building something special. If you ever decide to raise another round, call me first. Also, for what it's worth, I almost invested in Morrison Tech 5 years ago. Spent a week doing due diligence. Tripp was 21 at the time, fresh out of college, and already insufferable. Spoke to women on the team like they were idiots. Took credit for other people's work. showed up late to meetings drunk. I passed on the deal specifically because of him. Richard Sr. is a good man, but he's completely blind to his son's flaws. You dodged a bullet. That acquisition would have been a nightmare. Best, David Chunchin Ventures. Messages like that kept coming all day. Other founders sharing their own stories of times they'd walked away from deals because of cultural red flags. Women of color in tech thanking Maya for taking a stand. Even a few Morrison Tech employees emailing from personal accounts, expressing their gratitude that someone had finally called out Tripp's behavior. But there were other messages too. Death threats from internet trolls. Racist screeds from anonymous cowards. Emails from people calling her every slur imaginable, telling her she was uppity, telling her she should be grateful anyone wanted to do business with her at all. Maya read every message, the good and the bad, and felt her resolve strengthen with each one. Around 2 p.m., Richard Morrison Sr. finally got through, not via phone, but by showing up at Quantum's headquarters in person. Security called up to Maya's office. "Ms. Richardson? There's a Richard Morrison in the lobby asking to see you. He says it's urgent." Maya exchanged glances with Marcus and Simone, who were still in her office reviewing the day's developments. "Should I tell him you're not available?" the security guard asked. Maya thought about it. She could refuse to see him. She had every right to. He'd had all morning to reach out, to apologize, to make this right. Instead, he'd been silent, probably meeting with his own lawyers and PR people, trying to figure out how to manage the crisis his son had created. But curiosity got the better of her. She wanted to hear what he had to say, wanted to see if he understood the magnitude of what had happened. "Send him up," Maya said. "But Marcus and Simone stay." "I'm not leaving," Marcus confirmed. 5 minutes later, Richard Morrison Sr. walked into Maya's office. He looked like he'd aged a decade overnight. His silver hair was disheveled, his tie loose, his face haggard. The distinguished gentleman from last night had been replaced by a desperate, exhausted man who'd watched his legacy crumble in real time. "Maya," he said, his voice hoarse, "thank you for seeing me." "Mr. Morrison," Maya replied coolly, "please sit down." He sank into one of the chairs across from her desk, and for a long moment, nobody spoke. Finally, Richard Sr. broke the silence. "I'm so sorry." "For what?" If this story moved you, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next episode.